I'm going to introduce the wonderful, the ever popular, ever vivacious Dina Legland, the inner warrior coach. So Dina, she's a wife, a mom, two successful daughters, and all being a licensed RN, an EMT, home health care provider. She's also been a first responder, and she exemplifies strength and courage. She thinks on her feet, and she has her own self-response time wasn't always that way. Cancer saved her life. Cancer, she had helped her discover the underlying fears that paralyzed her and internal fears that almost killed her. So now Dina, she's a certified health and life transformation coach that helps women face their greatest fear to gain clarity, the source to overcome the worries, feel toxic like cancer. Today, she is just has great strength and response time for herself, mission, and to help others identify her fears and overcome what they dread using. She has custom tools to help them gain back control and unleash their inner warrior. I'm going to stop because I'm taking too much of your thunder away. Over to you.
Thank you very much. I truly appreciate it, and it's an honor to be here. Yeah, Dina Legland, that is me. And I wasn't always this strong, courageous, empathetic, powerful woman known as the fearless inner warrior. The truth of the matter is, I didn't discover who I was till my late 40s, even early 50s, because I allowed fear to control me in every area of my life. So during our time together, I'm actually going to share my journey with you and how I became so purposeful and passionate about supporting women to realize that we have control over our fear. We have a choice to make the decisions for ourselves and to live in freedom every moment of every day with no guilt. And that is truly my mission. And using my 4-stage process to conquer fear that feels toxic like cancer. So now it's time to unleash your inner warrior. And I'm going to share my screen with you. Okay. Imagine if you're driving home from work and the phone rings and the voice on the other end says to you, "Where are you?" And you have that puzzled look on your face and you say, "I'm driving home from work." And that voice says, "Pull over to the side of the road." And all of a sudden, the fear comes over you. And that voice says, "You have cancer. You have an aggressive form of breast cancer. You need to see an oncologist and a breast surgeon immediately." And then there's silence as that voice disappears. Imagine the fear that I had, the shock that I had, thinking the worst. Cancer saved my life, and my other fears almost killed me. It was an hour drive home that day. It was raining, there was traffic. And all I kept thinking about was, I did everything right. I got to be as healthy as I can possibly be. I lost over 110 pounds so that I wouldn't end up with a disease or an illness like every single family member that I had. And then to only hear those dreaded words, "You have a fatal disease." It may be hard to understand or believe that I could receive a phone call like that, and most people think they're going to die. And yet, that wasn't my greatest fear. My greatest fear was, what is my family going to think of me? Because now I had to take care of myself first and not feel guilty about it. Everyone in my life was going to judge me, and I was going to lose their love. That toxic fear controlled me, And it actually felt like it was sucking the life out of me more so than the cancer. And you're probably saying, she must be crazy to think like that, getting a diagnosis like that. And she's worried about being judged and not loved. Let's take a look why. That's me, bold as a cue ball. See that smile on my face? I decided that it wasn't going to take over me, that fear. But fear can be false evidence appearing real. So what was false to me? It was my most inner deep thoughts of being judged, not loved, being alone. And to me, that felt so real. I'm curious, is there anyone here who has experienced this? If so, put in the chat, yes, yes, hashtag false evidence, or just raise your hand if you ever felt this way before. I'm going to share a story with you. I belong to the local fire department, and I was an EMT, and I was going to a meeting one night. And as bald as my head is, I would wear hats, whether it was a scarf, whether it was a beanie, anything I could put on my head to keep my head warm, because I needed to cover that bald head. So I got to the firehouse, and I walk into the meeting room, and there was a bunch of old-time gentlemen sitting there, and that's what we call them. And I ran up behind one of them, and I pulled my beanie off my head, and I said, "My head is bolder than your head." The shock on their face, I just kind of like stood there, and I did one of these things like what's so crazy about this? And all I did was bust out laughing, and then they started to laugh. The bottom line is they still loved me. They didn't judge me. So what I thought was false evidence appearing real to me. And the only time this is true is when we allow it to be true. Laughter is one of the many tools I discovered to conquer that fear. What's the phrase? Laughter is the best medicine. And tell you the truth, there's no deductible or copayment for that as well. So it is actually one of many tools I teach my clients to use in my stage 2 of 4 stages to overcome fears that feel toxic like cancer. So let's take a look at the definition of fear. It's in the Webster Dictionary. It's an unpleasant, often strong emotion caused by anticipation and awareness of imminent life-threatening danger. So let's think about this for a second. The story I told you about my biggest fears of being not loved and judged, and me ripping off the beanie off the top of my head, was I in any imminent life-threatening danger? No, not at all. So I'm curious, what is your definition of fear? If you're willing to share, put it in the chat. What might be your definition of fear? And by the end of this talk, you will have the solution to absolutely transform your life so you can conquer that fear and be a wellness warrior for life like me. So, what is my definition of fear? I think you can kind of figure it out a little bit. It's that place where everything is spinning out of control. That space of never having the choice to make a decision for yourself, or for myself, actually. It's that feeling, of course, of being judged, not loved, and alone. Can you think of a time in your life where you were afraid of something? Think about it. Got it? All right. Put hashtag got it in the comments. Now ask yourself, that thing that you were most afraid of, was it life-threatening? I'm curious. Some of you may have thought of something immediately that you were afraid of. And then some of you may be saying, I really can't remember a time where this might have happened. And that's okay. Let me help you out here. There's some interesting statistics. In 2017, data from AE Shoot illustrates that only 6% of the population globally, now here's the key, globally, experienced fear from a fatal disease. In 2019 survey done by Chapman University, only 34.6% of the participants feared their own mortality versus the 77.2%, and get this, whose number one fear was corrupt government officials. So actually, the mortality ranked number 44 on a list of 88 fears. That's half the amount. More than double of these participants, their number one fear was corrupt government officials rather than their own mortality. Well, I believe some people may feel that corrupt government officials are a real imminent danger. But in reality, it's not as dangerous as cancer. Maybe you are one of the 6% who may face this, or maybe not. Maybe you are part of the 77.2% that your number one fear may have nothing to do with a fatal disease. These statistics really look at the percentage of truth versus the power fear has over us. So, struggles poison the quality of our life. So that fear that you have of something, do you think it can control your daily experience? And if it does, what might you want to be different? If you've never felt this way yourself, what struggles do you think someone you know, whether it's a family member, a friend, a coworker, would have that feels toxic to them? The bottom line is the struggles that poison the quality of our life. What do we allow to tolerate within ourselves? Or what do we tolerate from others? Because living consistently with our fears paralyze us from making decisions in every area of our life, which ultimately poisons, just like chemo does, the quality of our life. And the bottom line is we don't have to face this alone at all. Love and appreciate yourself with putting yourself first with no guilt. I call this the 4-stage process to let go of fear because of the 4 stages of cancer. Only in this case, when you finish stage 4, it's a good thing. Let me give you an example of this. I worked with a client who heard me speak on a platform. It was an interview, and I believe it was LinkedIn Live, to be honest with you. And this woman came to me who was in remission, and she said her biggest fear was of a medication that we take called tamoxifen. But as we started working together, we took the layers of the onion and we peeled them back. And we discovered together what her greatest fear was. And believe it or not, her greatest fear was driving. She had her first panic attack and the anxiety level when she was sky high, when she was in her early 20s. And I said to her, can you remember a time where you felt happy, confident driving? And she said, of course I do, Dina. It was when I used to drive in high school to my grandma's house to the country. And the radio was on, the windows were down, the wind was blowing through her hair. And I said to her, do you have a picture of that? And she said, of course I do. But that fear actually trapped her and paralyzed her. She wouldn't eat. She had such anxiety that it made her not eat. It bothered her so much, it affected her sleep. It affected the relationship with her husband because when he wanted to go do activities, she didn't want to get in the car. And it also affected her career. Because when she was going through this, we had the stay-at-home order, but now she had to go back to work and she had to drive. So what we did was we came up with the customized tools. And just listen to what they were. Very simple. She had the picture of herself in that car that she loved to go to grandma's house. She would visualize herself with the radio on, the wind blowing through her hair. And before she started that car, she would sit behind the wheel and just take nice, deep, slow breaths. And because she used these 3 simple tools, she connected with her inner warrior and made the decision by creating that anchor of precisely what she wanted to experience, that happiness, that confidence, that freedom. And her life was changed forever. Not only with her husband, but most important, with herself, because she put herself first and she was living in freedom every day. She gained back control of her life and she just started to enjoy and love herself again. So imagine living your life in freedom every day, loving and appreciating yourself first with no guilt, and taking that fear and now turning it into feeling excited and ready for any situation that you may be faced with. The truth is, we have the ability to look at life this way in every single situation we may come across, and the freedom is endless. So now is the time to let go of that fear and unleash your inner warrior. I am Dina Legland, the Inner Warrior Coach. And if you or somebody you know wants to conquer that fear, give them my information and they can book a complimentary 30-minute Conquer Your Fear discovery session. My contact information is at the bottom.